the people he doesn't like. And there's a handout in your canvas bag, and that handout I'd like you to look at now. You can follow everything he says. It's transcribed. If you read English, it will help you, I think. I think we should just go ahead and look at the video. And at the top, I just mentioned most of Stewart Huff's stories are about something he found beautiful in a person. He celebrates the creativity and passion he finds in those who are usually treated as failures. For example, he celebrates creative homeless people, or those who tried to fly but failed passionately. So the work that he's sort of built for the past 12, 13 years has been celebratory. But now he's making this shift. His new work has taken a different direction. Flipping his practice 180 degrees, the new work treats those people that Huff doesn't want to celebrate. People who, as he says, he wants to verbally kill. That's a common phrase among comics. They say that when they've really worked a room, they've killed it, right? But this is an even more focused sense of killing. He wants to parody a particular person, turn them into a kind of caricature of a person that he wants to actually verbally kill that person he makes. So he's splitting himself into, he's embodying that character, and he as the comic is going to verbally kill that character. Quite an interesting double voicing. That's why I titled the paper Double Voicing, which is a phrase from the Russian sociolinguist Mikhail Bakhtin. And he talks about double voicing as a way of, that anytime we quote anyone else's speech, we are bringing to the world kind of an interpretive, it's always an interpretive move. We are commenting on the quoted speech. So the new work, this new direction in Huff's work is the topic of this clip, and we're jumping in towards the end of a long interview I conducted with Stewart Huff, in which we asked him to tell us about his new work. Okay, so let's start.
Sometimes some things happen to you that no matter how many hours you devote to thinking about it, you cannot find the beauty in it. There's things that I cannot find any light in them at all. So then I write them from the other angle, which is, I'm going to show you how stupid this person was. And I don't use the word stupid flippantly. This person, I decided after 12 hours thinking about it, is indeed stupid. The things that I keep my beauty in, I used to just ignore. But I can't ignore them. I don't know what's changing in me. I have no idea. But I cannot ignore them. It bothers me. I've just recently, I started talking about this guy that I met who I don't know how to deal with. He was in Aiken, South Carolina, and I did just a horrible show that came up way short payment-wise on my electric bill. So, and I went up to, here's what actually happened. I did the show. It was horrible. I was miserable. They didn't like me. I walked up to the bar after the show was over. Everybody had already cleared out. There was a gentleman, fuck that, he wasn't a gentleman. There was a guy an adult, sitting at the bar, and the bartender was Hispanic. And I walked up to the bar and I said to the bartender, hey, I'm totally exhausted. Can I get a Diet Pepsi? And he said, sure. And he walked off. The guy sitting at the bar looked at me and said, I hate Mexicans. That's what he said. He didn't say, hey, I hated your show. Hey, I don't like you. He didn't even say, hey, my name's Racktail. I hate Mexicans. His first sentence to me was, I hate Mexicans. And I went, all right, good for you. he said, I hate them all. As a matter of fact, if you didn't choose to be born in this country, you can go fuck yourself. That's his quote. And I said to him, all right, well, that's a beautiful thing. And I went on with him, and what I've done, and what I did with it was I went back to the hotel room and thought about that guy. And he bothered me. He bothered me. And it's depressing, the fact that he had a wedding ring on, he probably has children, he's spreading this. If you walk up to me and say, I hate that bartender, okay. You know, maybe he's dating your daughter or something. You don't like the guy. Maybe he's a jerk. Who? But you hate him because he's Hispanic? That's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense at all. Ugh. I sat around and I thought about this guy for hours. And what I ended up doing to relieve my pain from him is I built a scenario, which is, so I said to the guy, all right, so if you didn't choose to be born in this country, I'm glad I chose to be born. That's great. This is a good decision in my life. And so we have the world, we have the globe. This is all of us. This is all the humans. And everybody outside of this can go fuck themselves. You know, Mexico, the former Soviet Union, Lisbon, Madagascar, fuck themselves. That's right, man. USA #1. Hell yeah. All right. Now I got you east and west and south and fuck the north at the Yankees. That ain't nothing but a bunch of damn Yankees. All right. So it's east and west and says from South Carolina to California, that ain't nothing but hippie faggots. That's all that is. Damn hippie money faggots too. Oh shit. All right. So South Carolina to Texas to fuck Texas. That's where all Mexicans. That's where they're coming in. We got a loose valve. All right, man. So it's just South Carolina, North Carolina, down to fuck Florida. That ain't nothing but money views. Money views. That's all that. You have to pay some on this fucking view. All right, so it's North and South Carolina. That's it for you. That's your whole world. Fuck North Carolina. They beat our football team twice. All right, so it's South Carolina. That's it, man. It's from like Charleston to Aiken to Greenville. Fuck Charleston. That's nothing but hippies. That's just sandal wearing, patchouli sniffing, fucking hippie. All right, so it's from Aiken to Greenville. That's fuck Greenville. That's where my ex-girlfriend's from. She wouldn't suck my dick, so she can suck my dick. All right, so it's Aiken, South Carolina. That is your world, Aiken, South Carolina. From this bar, the railroad tracks to the Piggly Wiggly. That fucking Piggly Wiggly, they fired me twice. Are you kidding me? They kissed my dick. All right, so it's from this bar to the railroad tracks. That fucking railroad tracks, that's where I got my third DUI. I told the cops, technically, I ain't on the road. All right, so it's this bar, man. That's it. That's your whole world. Me and you and the bartender. Fuck the bartender, he's Mexican. That's how all this shit got started. All right, buddy, so it's me and you. You reduce the whole world down to me and you. I don't know. Where the fuck are you from? So that's what I built. And building it made me feel good. And doing it on stage and hearing people laugh helped me work through actually meeting that guy. So now I don't walk around thinking somebody's got to get his kids. Somebody's got to get his kids. There's got to be a teacher somewhere, or somebody's got to stop the children because they're going to spread and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. I don't think that now. Now what I think is he reduced it all down to that. He reduced it down to himself. And I drive around and I think, can you reduce the world down to yourself? And can you maybe hate your legs? Can you reduce yourself down to nothing? Can hatred get to the point where nothing exists? Now I'm thinking a different way because I did all that.
He's wonderful. How much time do I have to say? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, already. It's off your time. Just speak. 1 minute. How about 1 minute?
Okay. Okay. Stewart is wonderful, as you can tell. He has a southern accent. I don't know if you picked that up. one of the thing that I most love about this is the transformative quality that creativity allows him. So his gesture at the end when he says, I did all that, right? Now I'm thinking a different way because I did all that. And that is like objectifying the hated object, person as object, and becoming able to philosophically deal with that object in a meta-discursive way, right? In a meta way, and using creativity to share your own worldview, and have it become a dialogue with the audience about someone else and a certain kind of behavior. I think that's all I'll say for now. You can read the paper in your packet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and especially for the short film showing a real performance.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, next I would like to hear the commentation from Professor Lin.
Yes.
Okay.
It's really a pity. I wish we could give Professor Sizer a bit more time to share her paper, which is so interesting and informative. Okay, and first of all, I would love to thank Director Shi for inviting me. I'm especially honored to comment on Professor Sizer's very interesting paper. But I hope you won't be disappointed. I have to confess that I only went to stand-up comedy once. And it was a very embarrassing, if not traumatic experience, because I was the only few audience members that did not get the jokes by the famous comedians Whoopi Goldberg. So I think most people here are like me, not familiar with the road comics and comedy clubs. As far as I know, the only similar type of venue available in Taiwan is Live Comedy Club Taipei, which did not start until quite recently in 2007. Although a traditional Chinese performing genre, a crosstalk, 相声, can be considered close to stand-up comedy, there are still differences in terms of forms and performing venues. Therefore, it's very helpful that the article first provides useful background knowledge of what a road comic is and the 4 steps it takes to be in this profession. Then the article cleverly examines the 4-sequence creative process of a road comic, Stewart Huff, and discusses the change of direction in his work. In analyzing Huff's bit, the author draws on Bakhtin's theory of parody. She effectively investigates how Huff imitates and stretches the hatred speech of the bigot, just as you saw from the clip, so as to expose and ridicule the meanness of the speech, but at the same time noticeably separates the 2 voices that respectively belongs to the bigot and himself. It's also insightful that the author highlights Huff's use of the question and answer format, which empowers the weak, turns the table around, and eventually traps the bigot. Overall, the analysis of the comedic bits is inspiring and convincing. I especially like the conclusion that calls the reader's attention to both the powerful recreation of an unpleasant encounter and the recreational power of such transformative recreation. The argument reminds of what performance art at its best can be: therapeutic, instrumental, and entertaining. And following are some questions that I would love the author to delve into a bit more, although some may not be within the scope of this paper. First, I'm curious of why the author select stand-up instead of improv. She mentioned in the paper that she saw the performance form in the US that would mirror some aspects of Tamil special performance that Professor Sizer studied in India, and with the 2 characteristics. First, performer working without script. Second, the use of performance convention so clear that rehearsal was unnecessary. In stand-up, comics rarely interact with each other on the stage, and the dialogue is between the comic and the audience. However, in improv, the dialogue also happens between the actors, and interacting in novel contests usually supplied by the audience is the heart of improv. So what form is more similar to Tamil special performance, and why did the author select stand-up? Second, the article mentioned that Huff seeks a state of alert vulnerability on stage, and that he typically opens with his own vulnerability. I'm curious about how this vulnerability might work towards the audience member, and whether this vulnerability will elicit sympathy and empathy from the audience member. And is Huff himself alert of his being open, the effect of his being open to vulnerability? Third, the article examines an example of the double-voiced parody. Is this parody, double-voiced parody, part of a conscious strategy of creative method employed by Huff? If this double-voiced parody is considered a form of creating a bit, would the author describe it as being typical of Huff's performance? And if yes, would the author be able to give another similar example? Moreover, I wonder how the author finds parody as a form in the context of comedy clubs. As scholars like Linda Hunchen and Simon Dentis have pointed out, parody as a genre creates, quote, the paradoxical effect of preserving the very text that it intends to destroy, end quotes. And through parody, the imitated text is simultaneously subverted and legitimated. In my own research on satirical feature-length comedy, I find the paradoxical effects and limitation of parody inevitable. But I don't feel the same way with the author's analysis of Huff's bit, and I wonder why. Fourth, Huff's dialogue direction in his work occurred after he gave up pursuing the dream of becoming famous, and was thus able to enjoy freedom in his creativity. This argument implies that there is a certain form of subject that the comic has to follow to be famous. Is this implication an observation that author makes after going to many comedy clubs, or a conclusion that draws on her interviews with Huff alone? And would it be possible to describe the particular style niche that a comic has to follow to be famous? And the fifth and sixth questions are about audience reception of this specific bit analyzed in the paper. Has Huff made any comments about varying audience response? If he has encountered negative responses, can he relate that to a particular type of audience members, especially Northerners versus Southerners? Besides, has Huff noticed difference in response to this piece when performed after different kinds of comedy? Does this bit play better after other redneck types of pieces, or when his comic world is quite separate from that of the previous performer? And the last questions are a concern about performance and social change. This bit, as often in stand-up, is as much or more caricature as it's a parody. Does the completely unusual and unbelievable character of the imaging conversant in any way limit the opportunities for the piece to effect the kind of social change that Huff hopes for? Can the audience members see themselves in the opinions of the character so absurdly drawn? If so, has Huff discussed how this comes about? And has he talked to audience members who have felt so moved to change as a result of seeing this piece? So I have lots of questions. Okay, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your sensitive comments and a lot of questions. I'm waiting for a professor who will give us a very good answer later. But next, we would like to invite Professor Li Xiying from Tsinghua University. Her topic will be the Seeing Art Law in Print.
Okay, thank you. I really need to justify my topic, my talk here as speaking from print instead of from orality, because as this is a conference for orality. But before I begin, I would like to thank the university and Professor Yuhan Fang for inviting me here. Due to some personal circumstances change, so because my mother's been ill, so these papers didn't change a lot. So but in any case, let's kick off. This paper will explain the way in which, the ways in which Gertrude Stein, one of the most experimental and also exciting authors in modernism, the way in which she uses the materiality of print in fact to force the readers to become a listener and verbal performance of her from readly texts. And this paper will argue by examining the acts performed by Stein's economic use of punctuation in sections of her book of poems, Tender Burdens. Actually, talking about orality, while I was writing this paper, I was talking about cultural media and also orality in 2013 is almost impossible, because one thinks culture alone via the printed media, although it doesn't mean that oral cultures have disappeared in our world, as so many of the scholars here, such as particularly Professor Zinka here, have demonstrated. And Thai scholarships such as Viv Edwards and Thomas Schinkenfisch have demonstrated how developed oral cultures are still very much alive with us in many forms and in many geographical locations. On the other hand, Edwards and Schinkenfisch also admit that difficulties of understanding the oral culture lies in our reliance on the written words for records. In order to study oral events and to relay them to other literate people, the speech event must be transcribed to be written down. Meanwhile, Warren clarifies one essential trait of oral culture in his seminal work on orality and literacy. Sound is an event in time, and time marches on, relentlessly, with no stop or division. Performance in an oral culture is always an immediate interaction between the performer and the listener, as Professor Zemke and also President Susan Sima Cherry has demonstrated. And Bigot worries that in the process of transcribing the oral performances, the written form might render the dynamic oral event static, invariable, and even petrified. And Walter Benjamin laments the disappearance of an oral storyteller as our inability to exchange experiences. He claims experiences that go, and it's an experience that goes from mouth to mouth. Experience which is passed from mouth is the source from which all the storytellers have drawn. A storyteller listens, who also knows the local tales traditions and knows the every sphere of life. And the characteristics of the oral storyteller think memorable thoughts. You think come to concludes, your thought comes into being, having rhythmic balanced patterns in repetitive and antithesis, in alliterations and assonances, in emphatic and other formulatory expressions, in standard thematic settings, in prophets which are constantly heard by anyone so that they come to mind readily and also themselves pattern for rendition. However, why does this have anything to do with Gertrude Stein, whose works seem to be unreadable? So I will argue that it's actually maybe unreadable, but not unlistenable. And I would do so by, again, I would justify myself by quoting the French textual scholar Roger Cartier. In his 1998 speech to the British Library, he talks about the transition from the oral culture to literacy, the difficulties for the society to start to transcribe what's performed and passed on literally in oral form. And the difficulties is usually embodies and enables in print by the creative use of punctuation. Punctuation in these days are usually thought to be syntactic and also semantic, grammatical. In other words, they belong to the printed word, not the oralic. However, Roger Cartier explains that punctuation can be used elocutionary as well as elocutionary. So I would like to look at just one line from Gertrude Stein's Tender Burdens to examine the way in which the concept of lines or sentences comes undone by the paragraph punctuations in Gertrude Stein's words by the visual pun as well as the verbal pun. And this is one line from her salad dressing and an article in Tender Burdens. It reads, "A hole is inside a pot is going away. A hole is red leaf." Doesn't make sense, does it? If you read it, literally, if you read it, not speak it. But I will argue that to use Walter Benjamin's image again, the storyteller passes the experience from mouth to mouth. And Gertrude Stein is trying to, being firmly, deeply aware of the environment she's in is a word of the readers of the print world. So she wants to make her text work and interact with her readers. Not so much of the solitary readers, as Professor Zemke has just demonstrated, but a reader that actually feels the vibration and resonance of the sound by her words. And also, it's a feel that's physical and bodily. This sentence, I would say, almost embodies the scene between women making love. A lot of critics have remarked the hidden lesbian sexuality in Tender Burdens. Alison Rico suggests Stein's technique of joining apparently incompatible words in arrangements built into her private text of hidden story of sexuality, and in part explains her insistence on assembling words instead of writing them in conventional ways. And I will go further into examining the linguistic, the textual, the materiality of punctuation and her textuality of the spelling to explore this sexuality that actually doesn't just hidden, it actually enacts and very much lives into your face and rhythm with your body. If we